Understanding the inner shell line setting is position location directions, how you set locations. All right. It's like time sharing your system. Time sharing is all levels of how you see yourself through maintenance. It's all levels of track location. So it's very high rise and high setting. So what I'm going to do today in class is give you guys a really position location, a very high line setting of vibration locations. We have a lot of new channel operation signals coming in 2023. Okay, the new year track setting high visibility comes into all levels of polarity location of channel operation sequence. It's position location of directions. So what I'm talking about is imagine that your avatar is coming in different codes. Okay, your avatar is coming into correlation. Correlation is all about understanding how to calculate and modify what you're doing through modification. Modifying your signals in position to its console. Console calculation setting to all levels of how you come into trial calculation setting. So what it is an avatar is you in a line setting. Now it's individual location how you set your location to space. Now, when you're in space, it's setting up new signals of program locations. Interlace, interconnect, interline its setting. So it's all about understanding is to have the positions to the obstacles of yourself. This self-depleting system, this self-location setting, allocate timelines, time stream, time allocate line rotations, time maintenance, time interference, time lock location, times of clocking. It's all calculated to modify how you see yourself through your vision. Visionary cortex location is all levels of your binaries. A binary line setting sets line positioning to your tesseract location, which is connected to your Metronic cube setting. Now, a Metronic cube line setting is position locations to all levels of your power connect line setting interference. This is all levels of how you use your chakra system. Yeah, 12 line settings of division location. You start off the zero gravity line sensory line position of temperature reading locations. Now, you got to make sure that it's the same thing when you get position locations when you have a fever. A fever location, you start on locations 98, right? Anything above that, you're coming into higher level position locations into measure. And that measure is a scale line system that puts higher level calculation, high interference, puts you more line position location directions and higher channels of operation, right? So you always want to keep that 98% lines in balance calculation, right? So you have to truly understand how to use the code signal. Now, to use a code signal is all levels of the avatar and where the avatar is set in location to its ground setting. You start with the zero gravity locations, then you come into all position of the grounds, which is one line setting. Two line setting location is security. That's the provision location, is high setting interference. And then you come into three, which is your sacral calculation setting. Four is your generation, your power generation light stream. Then you come into five. Five is this location heart. Now the heart is positioned in the matrix line stream. That's a data line setting. That's operation, position, location, directions. Now that's a circle interference. Now, what I'm talking about now is truly understand that you have to understand the representation to your chakra system, which is all calculated and modified through your travels of recognition of space and time through pi. Okay? So I'm going to try my best for everybody to understand. General speaks general in all calculation setting. Welcome to the new viewers that come in line center rotation interference, especially when they get activation high stream. So I'll get in that provisional locations to show you exactly what it is. And especially with the team line setting interference. You don't just stay in the foundation location where you are through biosurface or anything in the brain and surface. You have to fluctuate. You have to keep going up and down so you can really start recognizing everybody's else different vibration location of grass streams because not everybody is in the same division. Okay. So we have to start recognizing more of ourselves. And the way to do that is to understand the obstacle location is our inner shell, not the outer shell line setting. This is just an outer shell location. It's the inner self location. See that? See the solar graph goes so fast. Location, stream, setting, line interference, and the location, position, location, directions. High channels of higher line setting to position location to opposite line setting locations, guys. You just truly understand every time you're getting up in the morning, try to get into the inner shell, the inner knowing line setting of the inner truth location, the position of directions. Right? To understand you more is to understand how it works for you, right? The interlacing, interlining, interconnecting. So what that is, it's all levels of a T reception, right? You're putting things together. This is interlacing, right? And then you go faster, right? You're putting into position of visionary line communication, right? So if I do this really fast, you're going to see a different vision line setting, a cortex location, and my face recognition, a highline setting to higher position location of travel, border communication system, right? So it's how you see yourself through your vessel of communication. You're transponding information and receiving, but you have to receive it. And the only way you can receive it is to let things go that no longer resides with you. Like you come into line center location at fear trap locations or in that connections. You have to stay out of your ego locations. You have to get into the eco-line connections of equalized position of direct location, right? This is going to help you in always informs, and this is going to give you a better track of yourself, your geometry setting, where you are in calculation, right? So it's very important to understand these things because it's all levels of you through division. Your space divisions, your tactics, your communication setting, your space command settings. So the avatar recognized its system in all levels of space calculation. It's kind of like you're going to excite and you know exactly you have everything in chronological order, right? A lot of people pick up things, you know, like hats, bottle caps, shoes, purses, whatever. In that position locations, you take care of it, right? But it's on a shelf or it's on a rack. It's in chronological order. So every time you get up in the morning, you know exactly what you're going to wear, right? So that's what the avatar is doing. So once you know what the avatar is and what it's doing for you, it's all calculated and modified and how you see yourself in your own division locations. This gives you all levels of operation inside connections, but you have to understand the inner shell of you. The operation system is calculated in high setting. Okay. All right. So how's everybody doing on a Monday? Welcome to 2023. 2 million line settings into zero gravity locations, 2 sector calculation settings into 3 division. So what that means, it's basically the avatar is coming in another timeline, another time sequence in a clock locations into higher level division location to travel. Okay. So now you understand that. High division, low division, high division, low division through vibration, because that's how it comes into all levels of transponder. Your transisting location of transmutation is all calculated and modified through your calculations of alchemy. Everybody knows what alchemy is, right? So you have to learn how to use this in all provision to understand line connections and your line center interference when it comes into all levels and how you scale yourself. You know, 5 division line centers and high interference location of travel. So everything is a process of communication to your avatar setting, but you have to really understand how to use the inner knowings of your self locations. So I figure that when you get into the omniverse line setting locations, you come into the multiverse calculation setting. This is multi-line settings in your calculation to how you represent your lines of your clouds. And your cloud is positioned to its space command setting, rotation, interference. You come into a time capsule. We'll be traveling through that line positions to higher technology of calculation. All right. All right. Let's see. Max calculation scales. How you doing? Gingy, how's it going? Cami, Adam, Nikki, Gypsy, opposition of Susan, Ash, Belinda, Yolanda, Art, let's think calculation JP, Andy, Heather, CC, let's see, Jill, calculation settings, all almost that. Geneva, Joanne, Danielle, Val. All right. So hope everybody had a great weekend. You know, get in position locations to a new year, get into your goals. I mean, these are things you have to look at. Taryn calculation. Renee. All right. Laurie. All right. So we're going to do in all modification cycles, center calculation setting. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the team line travel locations, and then I'm going to go into all levels of a lower division line of vibration. So you know exactly what I'm doing on both ends. So there's 2 line settings. All right. So you don't get confused. Like, okay, what's General talking about today? What's he talking about tomorrow? Well, it's not about tomorrow. It's about now. So everything it represents locations all levels of view and calculations to center calculations on high setting that puts you in a time frame locations all levels of the now setting. Okay. All right. So let's go into our Archer location. I'm going to change setting line settings. So I'm setting up a video graph line setting. Okay. So when you set up a video graph line setting, you understand the structure locations. There's channels and all operation signals. All right, get in that position locations. All right. So it's all about understanding how to get into story frame position and directions. All right. All right. So we started line setting. Okay. Now we got 3 line tactic line settings of view locations, 3 division location line wires, and high interference. Okay. We got spot channels calculations 1, 2, in line positions. All right. So center communications into the levels. Okay. So everything that you do is a face clock line setting. Now, face clock line connections all levels of travel locations automatically slips through center calculation. All right. Now, this is Trinity center, comes into triangulation, slips through calculations. All right. So this is about understanding when it goes line setting, it goes into down surface position location all levels of travel. Okay. So a face registered timeline sets line vision. All right. So in calculation. Okay, so you got top line setting, bottom location. All right, so now it's in a time lock, time sequence, time pattern. Now it's in a timestamp position, direct location, right? So it's to set up the wave central line position locations, all levels, channel operation streams, sets line communication between line setting rotations into high sys locations into your diamond core. Now the diamond core line setting comes into opposition to a torical field. Right? Now, it gets a lot more connected to line setting. So we come into line position locations, okay, into higher division. Atom line setting rotation interference. Circle position to an orb channel that opens all line position locations to your units, sets higher communication setting. So we're going to go into speed line centers of lock locations in division. All right. So I'm going to do 2 graph streams setting lines. Open the line position location all levels. Okay. Compilation high interference. All right. Plat division locations into all atmosphere line position and directions. Hydrosphere connect line setting, high line rotation interference. Quantum line setting into quantum channel line position over track line setting in position of code signal. Go into the alpha line center, delta communication operation cycles, center line position locations. So let's go into tap ground line setting, levels of operation signal, and high interference. Position and program locations into protocol system line connections. All right. Team line center. Now the line position locations opens all channel operation signals. Now you're going to go into a high graph streamline center into Omni universe location into your cloud channels. That's going to put you in a time capacitor high position of directions. Clocking channel in line position into higher calculations in its time capacitor in its division. Right? Center communication setting in high setting. Center communication pressing channels operation. Signal line setting position directions. Set communication. Center calculation set in position right there. Signal operation signals. Okay. So you got 3 line signals, right? Center communication, atom line center, molecular light location, orb channel communication, time capacitor, and interference. Timestamps, timeline setting, high interference specification directions. This channels its operation line position, puts you into higher technology of time capacitor. I really want you guys to get into more the inner process of calculation of inner knowing. This gets you into more modification cycles and high generation light streams in position how you use your letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. Okay, this is going to correlate your division location modifiers, high setting, and it's going to put you into singularity location, position, and directions, right? So it's a lot more fun when you understand what's going on, right? So PCU line center interference, track line center and position locations, GBS lock set here, high interference in position of CPU. Now, all position locations into high setting into all levels of DCP. Now, digital position location computer, program locations, and line setting interference. Set position location, track line center, time comparison locations, high center interference, position locations. 30-minute on the clock line center, trial position, signal line setting. All right, so you guys are trial locations. All right, so as that signal location, teams all in high positions. Omni universal line position of stream setting location of data operator locations. Now, very complicated what I just finished saying. So everything that I'm saying right now is all based on travel. Okay, the team comes into this location knowing exactly what's going on with their avatar stream, setting line connections into data line streams in position locations and how they see themselves in their position location of their abundance. Right? So all it is basically traveling through a road of communication setting. That's all it is. So you're in the center communication setting right here. That's you, right? And then you go over here, and then you go over here, right? And then you go over here, right? Your high channeling, high information setting. Okay, that's all it is. So it's a road grass streamline conditions, which is connected to your tracker system. Now it gets less complicated once you understand the avatar of its purpose. Once the purpose comes in, position, location, directions, everything comes into formation of travel, of recognition through timelines, right? So we got a clock line channel, line center rotation, gravity location is 0, location of gravity settings. So this is 0 equals gravity line setting, all right? Operation signal and high line setting, high interference comes to all position locations into higher travels, position of triangulation. Triangulation line center locations come to 3 circle locations. Now the 3 circle connections is positional levels of 6, 7, and 8, right? 9 line setting sets position location directions. Higher levels of channel operation streams into levels because it's an AI map of calculation setting. Now, when you come into high line center rotation, you set position locations on levels. That opens all communications in position of directions, right? So you come into another panel calculation setting, all right? Coming in that line setting rotation interference comes at different clock locations. So you're not working at 24,000 line anymore. You're working with a 24 million line rotation. Okay, 6 position line settings on locations, setting calculation, right? That's 24 million line circles and setting line position location and clock location of face recognition. Then you're working with a 48 million track setting. You don't need to be in position locations of 48 billion. You just have to understand how to measure the calculation setting to all levels of your travel locations when you come in clock lines. Okay, so basically what I'm talking about is true that the avatar has to stand the clock of what it's doing through travel. So once it understands its balanced communication system, it's always in the 5 central lines. 5 is the balance of everything in position and directions, right? Even with your temperature reading locations into a virus calculation of fever, you're at 90% balanced calculation system, fever and back in calculation setting. So ground center interference specification directions all levels of its surface, okay? So what that means is the avatar is trying to understand the time position of its capacitor that's reaching position location of its time frame that's setting locations of its now system. Okay. So hopefully you understand the high division line setting to the low division locations. So you can understand what is going on with your avatar. Okay. When you get into time code sequence, patterns, position, location, and directions. Clocking line channels has to truly understand all line information, right? Because that's all it is. It's communication. You're just sending out information, but you're also receiving. You have to receive to understand. You can't just interline position, location, interline position, say something and not have something come back to you. That means you're not ready. That means your universe is not ready. You're not ready to receive. If you're not receiving things, how are you going to understand the interline position location to your vessel communication of your shell? Time capacitor of any position, location, and directions. You're not going to understand anything in that connections until you understand yourself and inside and all direction of master communications. How you use the inner child line setting, how you use the child communication, how you use the teenage line setting, how you use the adult interference, right? Now, the reason why I say adult interference is because that's where you are in that position. But the mind is a different position of triangle, okay? So line connecting is extremely powerful. We've been into that process calculation setting, but I really want you to understand the program locations when you get into channel operation, all right? So hopefully you can understand how this works out on levels of time frame, time calculations, all levels of timestamps, all right? So this is going to help you out more when you get more into imagination, right? So try to get in position of the avatar, what it's doing. So when you're closing your eyes and you're just getting into a basic frame, okay, It's a cloudy day. Okay, so now it's cloudy. You're making a cloud because you want a cloud, but then all of a sudden you see the sun, and the sun's coming in really, really hot, and it's changing everything, right? Clouds are disappearing, the sun comes in, light setting. Now people are walking the street locations, right? There's a frame, there's imagination, there's a correlation, there's a panel, there's space, there's time, there's pi, there's an image, there's a vision line setting, high set position location of directions to your central system. Okay, so that's what this is. That's all this is imagination. Okay, so once you understand that, then you can move on to the next. So you have to balance everything that you do through clocking. Okay, clocking is extremely important because you're fluctuating back and down and communicating with others, right? Let's say your avatar is here, position locations. It's traveling, right? It's traveling. So you got one position here, one position here, one position here, right? 3 position locations of units, right? So you're deciding which one to go through. You're going to scan this one, scan this one, scan this one, right? So you're scanning all 3, and you're deciding, okay, if I want to go all 3, I go through triangulation, right? So you can connect in all 3 of them. When you connect with all 3 of them, you're great. You get into the universal line in observation. You don't get into a time lock line setting. If you get locked in a timeline setting, the line position location changes all levels how you see your positions to their atmosphere line conditions. You can see their atmosphere, you can see their sun, you can see their moon through observation, but do not go in center line position inside location, right? If the avatar gets locked in signal, you're in trouble, okay? So it's very complicated if you understand the visionary cortex stream. Now, visionary cortex is understand the placebo cortex line stream settings. So it's all about the mystical line communication and levels when you come into, you start off at your lucid dream locations, but the placebo line center is slipping in position of direction. So it's trying to understand how to go through dimensional line settings of screen locations. This gets you in a cerebral cortex line stream. Now, a cerebral cortex line stream is trying to understand how to use your self locations into all levels of higher division line setting of dimensional doors. Now, there's a dimensional door setting location that you can set locations, all right? So if you're in line setting locations, all right, you're traveling here and you see a dimensional door. Okay, there's a dimensional door. So if you understand that dimensional door, you scan line setting first, position locations, and then it sets up another dimensional door line, another dimensional, so it's got 4 dimensional door line settings, right? So you want to go through all those. You have to understand each one in position, right? Because each dimensional door line is locked in sequence per second, per minute, per hour, per channel, per operation. So once you get into higher lines of division, your avatar understands more the calculations to its galaxy setting. So it comes into higher communication of realm of calculation setting into its position of direction. Okay. So there's a lot of things you have to understand how these things are set up, right? So basically what it is the avatar is trying to understand more of its timeline. It's trying to understand more of its memory. It's trying to understand what it's doing in space in the first place. It's trying to understand, okay, so where do I go now? How do I understand this? How do I understand that? Right? Well, it's all about you getting to your vision. It's all about you getting into your imagination. You get your imagination. You get your vision, right? Vision is what you want to see. Imagination is what you're creating. All right. So really understand how to adapt this system. It gets much easier once you understand the inner shell of you, of location, because you have your intention, you have your will, you have your force, you have a creation, and you have a location. 5 vision line centers right there, smack in location. All right. So these are the central communications that you have to use every single day when you get at line center locations, everything. The adaptation system opens all levels of you, position, location, directions. Now, zero gravity interference is the highest formation location of calculation of videograph location of screen settings. So it's trying to understand how you set position location into your videograph location. There's one videograph line setting, right? Now, line setting is trying to set position where your avatar is in box frequency, right? So you got one box frequency to another frequency location. All right, that's channel line setting. Okay, so that's 2 box location of vibration lines. All right, but there's 7 line position in your body and 5 within the atmosphere. That's 12 division locations in high setting. All right, so to clear these things up, you know exactly where you are in vibrational graph stream location because it all measures your emotional setting. Right, get out of the emotional locations. Emotion. Okay, get out of the emotional location. Okay, emotion equals out of equation, right? So once you understand more of that, what it is the avatar is trying to understand the communication of the sun of light and the communication of the programs of the moon of emotional setting. So you have to understand the position, how you use a flux capacitor. A flux capacitor is kind of like a coil that has a compressor, and that compressor is position of its directions, know exactly where, how fast it goes through fluctuation. In calculations where it comes into the Back to the Future of the DeLorean when it reaches 88 miles per, you know, that calculation setting, when it gets up to 88 miles per hour, and that calculation set interference, it disappears, right? And when it disappears, it just goes to the other side and then reappears, right? So it's interesting to look at these locations. So you got the physical line and you got the adaptation location dimensional line setting. Right? So you're here, you disappear, right? And then you reappear. You disappear and you reappear, right? So that's position location of zero gravity interference and position locations interdimensional, also communication operation, right? So there's so many ways of looking line conditions of your system, right? But the zero gravity location is a zero operation setting. It's the highest acceleration line setting that you can set locations, 114 chakras. So the more you get into higher face recognition of your system, then you understand the inner shell calculation setting. So what that means in the avatar system is it's to understand that I'm trying to get into time settings into my clock locations to channeling. Channeling operates in signals to a certain line graph location to its capacitor that sets higher levels of travel. Okay. So hopefully you understand a little bit more when I go into low division to high division and higher and highest division, right? Because there's so many levels of communication when it comes into levels of your avatar stream. Okay. So line setting CPU, send new directions, line signals, set positions to hologram structure, line of abundance, auto reset, to reception line settling, phenomenon line setting of higher formation. Yeah. So this is what the team really has to get into. You have to get into more fluctuation. Really get into that, especially when you're coming on my live and you're communicating with levels that are at a lower division line, right? And this is going to get you in a better calculation setting. So you always see them through observation through their universal location, but you don't travel through the line signatures. You do not travel through the line signatures. Okay. So this is the provision location when it comes into provision locations, program setting. They said things location will come into universal law. Things you do, things you don't do. Things you say, things you don't say. Things you're aware of and things you aren't aware of. It's going to help you always inform, right? So it's all provision locations when it comes into universal law, right? Ground setting calculation gets you in position location directions all the timeline setting. So what that means to the avatar is that the avatar is trying to understand all levels of its system. Okay, how it understands the grounds, the powers, and the atmospheres. All right. So everything that I say is information for you, for the avatar to understand the inner system is the inner cycle of all adaptation of activation. All right. So once you get into a better increase with your volumes and position of direction, then you understand more line connections of yourself. All right, setting, understanding cloud program fast. Good. So we got 29 sequence and 44 line settings. All right. Charlie through realms, the unicorns through clouds, of line crossing. Good. Higher information, higher technology line division. 0. All right. Getting that position of directions, guys. It's very powerful. Now, I know you guys are going to have a lot of questions and answers. The questions are given to you. The answers are given to you. The questions are given to you. The answers are given to you. So you can answer the questions that are given to you. So you're not given anything in that position of direct locations. You have all the answers inside locations. Okay? Q&A is about understanding the quantum system of you. So once you understand the quantum line setting, then you understand location of a solstice. Remember, we got that solstice locations, all levels of portal communication and line setting, coming into new beginnings, new year, new track, new division, location setting, interference. So it's all levels of you, okay? Especially when you want to come into your manifestations of your abundance, okay? So memories of past line reference that are really more basically cleaning out into hardware. Yep, connecting the hardware line strings, sending notification directions, all levels of channel operation, theta communication interference. So over time, things get a lot more easier, right? Because you understand the interline connections, the intercycle, which is interfacing line setting, which is the higher information location when it comes to AI. Being aware of these things is to understand the consciousness. Now, there's so many levels of consciousness of you. You just have to understand how it works for you, not against you. Nothing works against you unless you want it to. See, this is about understanding your thoughts are calculated to modify how you use the awareness of its consciousness. You're conscious of this, you're conscious of that. I'm understanding this more, I'm understanding that more. That's consciousness, right? So it's not a position location asking, what is consciousness? Or saying, can you give me consciousness? No, you already have it. So it's stored of information. Everything you see around you is information of communication. And that's how we connect to everything in sideline. But you have to really understand the obstacle levels it takes to get where you need to be through the inner shell of communication to the inner cycle line conditions to its heart reactor of the unified ascension of your system location of your avatar connection. So that's going to help you in all ways and forms. Flowing all info into light speeds. Good. Okay, that's good to see that line setting. Just going through videograph locations here on the board. I like to see how you guys are connecting to settings. Yeah, it's all information that's given to you over time. Okay, and you just have to truly understand the importance of what it is through your avatar, right? The integration location is all levels of you, right? It's how you intercept the system, how to calculate and modify all these things through simulation, right? So right now, in that line setting location, 8th dimensional location of graph settings, puts you all levels of singularity. Okay. Now, singularity is based on a single line device. Now, single line device, so you come up with these calculation settings. Singularity is, it's kind of like a calculation modification stream setting. Hold on a sec, guys. one thing you guys want to be doing is always be prepared for levels of distraction. Today's the water boys that come every Monday. So we're in 36 lines. So what that means, try to understand that numbers are given to you. There's numbers everywhere that you can imagine. Now, it's in position of its own space of time of pi, guys, which is amazing. It's all codes. So it's trying to understand how to put this in order so the avatar can understand the travel, especially through a clock, especially through time, okay, through its own directory, because it's going through hours, minutes, and seconds, right? You're in a 60 clock window, right? 60 seconds per minute, per channel, per operation, per square, per mile, right? So it's all about understanding how to use it through your time frames. Time maintenance and calculation setting. So I really want to get more in that volume in lines. We're going to go into a lot of time stamping. Now, time stamping is to understand how to resonate with your frames. Fibonacci. Fibonacci goes one way, Fibonacci goes another way, but you put them together, a continuous force. Okay. So if it's a continuous foreign line setting, it's in position location to its right time frame of hour, position locations of minute, and position location of seconds. So we can separate locations. Now, to understand the clock line setting, now it's 38.36. So I set line centers of 3. I break it in bracket surface. 1, 2, 3, 4. Complacement line setting in foregraph string line setting position locations puts in a high setting interference. Track locations, automatically, it's going to take you guys out in 40 position line directions. 4 channels operation, 0 gravity interference, 0 line setting in position of directions. 1 minute channel off calculations. Once it gets into 40, you guys will come back. So to reach the time frame, because it's live in division line setting, once it reaches 40 in position, 0 gravity, 0 line setting, you guys will travel back calculations into your ground perception to your earth setting. So I don't have to do anything because it's already set locations. I just look at the clock, the hour, minute, and seconds of the day, guys. That's all we live on is seconds, minute, hours, and days. We don't live anything else that calculation setting, but you have to truly stand the timeline. Okay. All of its course. Right? So we got 5 seconds line setting, back positioned. You guys will come back. And there you go. See how that works? It's amazing how you look at locations and then we're already in 10 line setting. You guys already came back. 10 seconds prior to that position locations opens all channel operation setting locations, right? Now we're in position coming into 30 seconds, right? So it's interesting to look at locations. Now, when you're time stamping, you can change time frames. It's like changing the position location of your birth date. So if you can change your birth date, that means it's going to change your time sequence, time pattern, time interference, of time clock, location, position of time frame. So when you're changing that settings, you truly have to understand how to put positions back in track setting. So when you're changing something, you have to change it back, right? That's the true understanding, is that you have to put yourself always going forward, always going forward. You can go back, but you got to bring yourself back where you are. You can't stay in a position because you'll be locked in signal. You'd be you'd be in a major glitch. You don't want to do that, right? Because it just it's got to. Life is about going forward, not going back. We've been through that before, right? So the avatar has to understand how to use its own clocking division, know exactly the time frame that it reaches position location calculations, how you guys came back at that particular time. Okay, which means the central communication puts you back in your line setting, but back is not a communication that's going back in time. It's positional goes into the center communication of future of time. So don't get confused with the anomaly line setting, because now you're switching off center location and interference location of channel operation stream settings. So it gets more complicated when you travel faster through an acceleration through galaxy settings, right? The weather has its own trajectory locations, right? It knows exactly what it's doing through its wind factors. It goes this way, it goes that way, it goes this way, swirls this way, it comes back down this way, and that way, all at once. All at once. But it's in a different time. But you're seeing it all at once. You just don't understand the dimension of its portal of time. But what you're seeing is what you're seeing in the future of its own time. It's amazing, isn't it? When you look at locations. So we do have Q&A. Hopefully you guys got a little bit more understanding higher technology line setting into your omniverse locations, into your clouds, right? To understand the importance to really get into the inner circle, the inner cycles, the inner shell of you, of its own provisional location to its avatar setting. Okay? So yeah, it's crazy how you saw the return, and it's all levels of code signaling. It's just trying to understand that your recognition timelines have to truly understand the number sequence pattern location. Really understand that, why you see these numbers, why they come at you, because it's a magnetic force. See, your avatar sees these through direct signal, right? If I see 4 line settings in one position location of 4 channels, if I see 5 position locations into 0 gravity location of 1 position, if I see 3 communications into 6 lines into 7 line interference, I know what it is to travel, right? So if you're seeing 3, 6, and 7, you have to know what it is. What does it mean to you through travel? The avatar has to know these things because it's constantly traveling. You're not stopped traveling on any level of position, location, direction. You're constantly moving forward, right? Even if you go into 0 gravity locations and you got 1 position loft setting in a 0 gravity interference, 1 position track line center, equal locations of 2, 2 position location of 6. 6 override center line position locations, inline center locations of 12. 12 line center comes in position location, line signaling equals locations into box surface. See how that works? That's what we have to come into, because we're in a new year setting, right? 2023. That's 2023, right? But this is 2 million line settings, 0 gravity interference, 2 track locations, and a 3 division. All signal locations. So you have to understand what that means, because it's all levels of mind of traveling lines, so telepathy traveling these locations. So 1 division line setting. That's 1 division line setting, not just 1. It's everything but 1. But in position of directions, it's setting 1. So if it's setting 1, equal line conditions setting 2. 2 position locations comes into a triangle. Ooh, triangle comes into position location, all line setting, in high line rotation, position location, calculation, high interference of Merkaba. Wow. See how everything communicates? See how amazing it is when you just get into balance calculations all over the keyboard line settings, alphabetical stream setting, location, position, directions. Now the physical adaptation location is 26 positions of letters. The avatar is 26,000 lines setting location of stream letters, locations, into 1 letter position and directions. 1 travel line center, 1 billion line center, 1 interference locations into its measure, calculates and modifies how fast you travel through your code sign location. Clocking centers, clocking channels, clocking interference, clocking position locations of its abundance, clocking there, clocking here, clocking everywhere, right? It's always, always, always in position of center calculation, right? One track center. One track center equals line position locations into an S-line system. S-line system backforce line centers underscore communications into factor over calculation, high interference position direction. So it's amazing what it is. It's all levels of view or formation through communication, right? Congratulations. You get into these locations. You really understand the relationships of numbers, letters, shapes, and symbols. We have to really get into a deeper core line center to the avatar through location of travel and mechanism of space and time. Okay. We're going to get into more. We're going to get more into space mechanisms. Okay. We're going to go into the mystical valve. All right. So I'm just showing you how powerful it is when you got, okay, we got 10-minute line settings and we have locations, and you got 5-minute location, drink your waters. All right. So it's interesting to look at these occasions, right? So when you get in that setting, you got a zero gravity location. Zero gravity location, guys, equals connection to the ground. Ooh. Right? And this brackets its center position into 3 channels of zeros operation. Line connecting setting of its locations always equal line center location to its diamond core. Whoa, that's high position. Now this opens all positional high centers to all zero gravity locations into its crop circle. Crop circle comes into flux capacitor. Whoa, look at that. So I could do this all day. You know, formulas are so easy to do. You know, just trying to understand the graph location, what is the line setting interference, its position location, direction locations, all those of channel operation signals, inline setting, high center interference, position location, directions, all those of channel operation stream locations. Your channels is position locations. Now, when you get into planet centers, it gets a little more complicated. Positional direction opens all channel operation stream locations into one line centers, 3 weather pattern communication and triangle line connections, either center line rotation interference central locations into planet surface calculation. Extremely high rise. Structure, formula, communication setting. All through number sequence locations into all levels of planetary surface line. This is this. This is this. All right, right at the bottom. All right. So it's interesting when you come in that setting, right? Same with symbols. You know, symbols come in so many ways and form locations. So levels of channel operation stream setting. There's a symbol right there. What does that mean? Well, the center its calculations is center position. You start with the center. So the center line position location sets a beacon light center right there, 3-line position, right? So that's 3 communication, right? Now the 3 communication opens lines, all right? So you got docile calculations into 1 atom setting, into 2 atom setting, into 3 atom setting locations or rotation setting. Now that opens all levels of, now I'm opening up frame position location, higher frame line settings. This opens all communication to its tesseract calculations into all levels of its orb calculation, into position, all levels of its Merkaba position, location, and direction. Hooah. So it's great having fun, isn't it? That's what life is all about. It's having fun with your imagination system, right? But you have to understand the interline connections of you through all division, right? It gets more easier when you understand how to travel, right? The mind conception opens up more polarity, more concept, more knowing, more doing, more understanding, right? So, well, you can stand alone there, Commander, with a 24 line setting and position of all levels and / location of 7 division line center interference, set position of pro location abundance, trifactor over line position locations in a 7-day week signal, clock location, balance calculation, time set perceived position, space-time position location of pi, all through a 24/7 location. All right, so you got 5 minutes to drink your water. I'll see you guys in Zoom. Adios.